Okay. Hello, Lauren English. So delightful to see you again.
No.
So I should explain to the viewer that I actually had this really, really great conversation with Lauren yesterday on Zoom, and it was really great. And the thing is that I only realized at the end of it was I had just forgotten to actually hit record. So so I did not record it. However, we still had the conversation. The conversation existed between us, and was lovely, and so that can't be taken away. But there was no recording of it, and so very kindly, Lauren, you have agreed to be re-interviewed by me and for a little bit, and I'm real appreciative. Also, this was just part of my effort to show you what to expect when you with your brain when you become old like me. And then this is this is like this is actually a pretty benign thing that happens with my brain. I forget to record when the purpose of doing the interview is to record it. So now you know what's but that's decades away. So yeah.
I can't sign off on that. I feel like I do feel that if the fact that it didn't get recorded is sort of on trend or on theme of what we were talking about in some way. Because
Well, yeah.
my biggest takeaway was, well, first of all, this is my takeaway. It now lives on my desktop, which is celebrate being lost.
That's where we
And
got to in
that's
our
where we
now
got to.
lost unrecorded conversation.
Right? I
Celebrate
mean,
being lost.
we have to celebrate it. So, yeah, I mean, we were also talking so much about like accidents and what accidents mean in solo performance in front of an audience.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about that so much since our conversation and how by nature a solo performance is an experiment because there is this other character in a different kind of way, which is the audience. So my wheels have been turning ever since.
Yeah, I just had a long Zoom meeting slash rehearsal with John Tracy, artistic director of the Marin Shakespeare Company, who I know you know this. I'm saying that for like a viewer. So, but who's also now starting to collaborate with me on the show I'm doing, the new show I'm doing, What Is to Be Done. And one thing that came up from that, this just like ended a few minutes ago, but what came up from that is the lesson is to just keep going. You
Hmm.
know, because I was saying that one of the things that I like about or that I found to be sort of life saving to me about developing my shows in the way I do, which is improvising in front of audiences, is that if I was just by myself writing, then I would write something. I said, well, that was a failure, you know, or maybe that failed, and then I could very easily become discouraged and stop. But since I've invited an audience to come into the space, and you know, they left home and they came to the show, and they're there, so the genius of that setup is that I have to like keep going because there are people there. Like there are people there, and but in a sense that I'm hoping to sort of spin out and continue in conversations with John, and then in further performances of the show, is it's that's sort of kind of the point to me about with democracy now. It's like with the resistance is just keep going. That's actually what is required. Keep going, keep going. So um, the fact, and in fact, to get to your show, which I'm so excited to see in the fold, um, I think also to me, at least coming from outside, uh, it also feels like this willful and brave act, a decision, a choice to keep going,
Hmm.
both to keep going with your life, but also with your art. And so I don't want to sort of invade your privacy or anything like that about like asking about specifics, but just so that people know you had a terrible loss in your life,
Yeah, I
and
think that the
and that led to
play
this. Yeah.
Yeah, that led to this moment. I mean, initially it led to a podcast, which led to a solo show. But I think before anything, it was about love, and I think about that more and more as I explore the loss. And I lost the father of my child 2.5 years ago. So I spent a lot of time processing the grief and the loss and the trauma. And once I started looking at it in a creative capacity, I realized that the origin of the story wasn't the loss, it was the love.
Mm.
And so a big part of this exploration is going back to that, um, and charting the whole map. The whole journey is love, loss, grief, pain, transcendence. And then it's not linear because it keeps cycling through, but those are the emotions that this play largely exist in. That's the ecosystem.
So when you perform, and this will be your first performance ever of this new solo show, will be at the One for All festival, and which is so very exciting and gratifying to me as curator. But would you say that this process that you're in and that the audience will join you in when you perform, that it sounds like from what you just described that it actually, the making of this art, the making of this story, I don't want to be cliched or anything, but it seems to have been part of your continuing healing process.
Mm.
Is that fair to say?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I mean, I think part of it, the part that I've been realizing lately, because there've been healing and there've been blockers and healing and blockers, but the place that I'm in right now, I don't know enough about this therapy to think of it or talk about it like an expert, but it feels almost like exposure therapy. Like I'm exposing myself to the hardest bits, the underbelly, um, the tenderest parts of the experience over and over again. And I think culturally speaking, we don't do that. We like compartmentalize the traumatic moments. And what I'm doing is choosing to relive them.
Right.
And in some way, I feel like it's not that I'm becoming desensitized or disassociating, but I'm normalizing it as a part of who I am and a part of this narrative that I've created.
Normalizing, like metabolizing it, like
Yeah,
that
that's
this
a
is,
better word.
yeah, like it's not, because it really does seem, I think, just even as a sort of a survival thing for a human being or an animal, like you don't want to relive pain, you don't want to relive loss, like,
Yeah.
I mean, because it hurts again. So why reopen old wounds or whatever it is that you, but the thing is that when you're making a story, when you're making an art piece that is based on that loss, based on that experience, and then is pulling you through to the joy that preceded and follows it. But when you're doing that, you're also, um, I don't even know where I was going with that. I just got all excited about your piece. But yeah, like,
Hey,
you know,
celebrate being lost. Let's
yeah,
celebrate
celebrate.
something
That's what we said last time. Celebrate being lost. Yeah. No, but it's like you're. Oh yeah, I was gonna say it's natural for it seems intuitively like, why talk about things that were terrible to experience for you over and over again? Why explore them? Why
different.
investigate them? But
Hmm.
in fact, that, as this has certainly been true in my experience and been a blessing of my career of being able to be an autobiographical storyteller, is that you actually share these deep things with your audience, and the audience wants you to be that deep. They want you to be deeper because the audience is infinitely deep. Because we are. It's actually, you're accessing, you're helping everyone access the depth, the complexity, the richness, and maybe even with this so much sadness, but ultimately the joy of what life can bring.
Yeah, that all feels really true, Josh. And I think um, why explore things that have such depth for me is largely about two things. One is about destigmatizing these perceived horrors, right? So traumatic loss and addiction are two things that we're very, as a culture, we hedge around. Um, and I really want to create a more open dialogue around those two
Mhm.
areas, and that's largely what the play is centered on. And I think, in the depth of my own feeling and despair, frankly, around loss, it wasn't until I started talking to other people, and that eventually led to a podcast, that I understood my own resiliency. So
Mhm.
I was really isolated in my experience, and then I started talking to other people and asking them how they got through things. The theme of my podcast was called You're Gonna Make It After All. And that was my experience of being in those conversations. And it's my hope for the audience, right? That instead of saying, oh no, I could never go through something like that, it's like, I could and I will. It's the inevitable. We'll all lose people. We'll all experience tragedy in our lives. So
Oh, it's
the
our great terror.
resiliency, yeah,
It's the worst thing. Lose those we love. Yes.
for
And yet we're
some of
still
us,
here.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
for the time that we're still here.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's also something. I think resiliency is a tricky word because people often talk about resiliency when they talk about my child and children in general. Children are so resilient, they can get through hard times, and there's almost like it's just become sort of a cliched narrative. And so I think in some ways I swap out resiliency for adaptation.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I'm so curious about that scientifically. I heard somewhere that the definition of adaptation is the process by which a species comes to thrive in the world.
Wow.
Um,
All right.
the
Cool.
process in which a species comes to thrive in the world. And I think about loss and grief in that way, in that life cycle of like, our roots will grow again, we will get rain again, we will get sun again, just like any sort of organic organism. And to me that feels a little more active and a little more, it leaves room for more than resiliency in some ways.
Well, also the idea of resilience is saying, well, children, for example, children are so resilient. It also is sort of like basically disclaiming any sort of responsibility for them, because well, you do whatever you do, and they'll roll with it, right?
Right.
And the thing is, well, what's actually happening is that they're going through immense things themselves, of course,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
also that they do adapt, as you say, they do adapt, and they do find ways of thriving. My dad, the thing that he would say over and over, I think, because his parents, he had a very fraught, difficult relationship with his own parents, and he said the thing that I think that amazed him more than anything else in his life was seeing when children who didn't receive love became loving people.
Mm.
You know that they. I mean, you know, I think in a way he didn't mean to. He was sort of talking about himself because he became this incredibly loving father himself. After not having felt that love from his parents,
Mm.
but I think that, and then it's a miracle. Like these things are all miracles, but
Yeah.
but we can't find out about that in my experience. In my experience, without other people, we can't experience, like you started having conversations. You did your podcast, right?
Right.
So you had conversations with people who had dealt with addiction in some way and with loss.
Yeah. Addiction or trauma or grief or all three for the
Yeah,
lucky ones.
yeah, no, just is the privilege, the blessed few, and so so you did that, and that clearly began a process for you.
Mm,
It continued and began, but also continued a process of you processing what you had been through and what you were going to do with your life now. And then, was there a point at which you felt, okay, the podcast is cool, but I want to do this other thing? Like, was there a point where you felt like a need or a calling, a
mhm.
want to do a solo show about it in the theater?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing that the podcast taught me was that I could in fact write in a meaningful way because I had to write these intros and outros to the podcast, and suddenly I had this like little baby body of work. And I realized the thing about that body of work is that it was just my voice. And
Mm,
so I thought, oh well, why don't I explore this? And I took a class with David Ford, who is incredible, collaborator and solo performer, curator, and director himself. And it was life changing. You know, he says he promises at the end of my course you'll have 20 minutes of material, and I ended up with 45. You know, it just opened something up for me.
mhm.
Um, and then, of course, you know, I've been a professional actor for I was for 25 years full time, and I don't do it as much anymore. And in part because I'm a full time single mom. So the idea of going off and doing 8 shows a week is like, it's not a thing that can happen. But doing doing a solo show for one night only in March feels like something I can do. Um,
Cool.
so yeah, so I
Yeah.
mean, we'll see. We're working we're working on it. We are working on it hard.
No, it's really, I mean, it's really exciting. I think I'd love to sort of give people a sense of, in a way, like what you do and what the story's about. So, like in the kind of monologue that I do, as we were talking about yesterday, like I basically come out as myself and I talk about myself and about other people, but I'm myself, you know. And as I mentioned to you yesterday, I've never actually been an actor in a play where I'm like with other people, but that is your professional experience. That's, you know, the basis of your sort of performing experience. And so to me, I'm really also interested in what happens when now all of a sudden, I mean, you talked about their pragmatic reasons as a single mom to not want to be doing 8 shows a week. Although when your show's a huge hit, you're going to have to do eight performances a week anyhow. But you'll just have to figure. I think you'll adapt. I'm pretty sure you'll adapt. But what in the meantime, there's also something to me about like what how different that is, how different that feels to you to be, instead of being channeling other people, written by other people, that you're channeling yourself and your own writing and your own characters directly to the audience, how that feels or how you anticipate it will feel.
Well, I'm learning. I mean, this is something that you and I have talked about. You've had an influence on me in terms of looking for things to be more autobiographical, which I was like, right, of course. I'm kind of dancing around my own story by creating these other characters. Um, so that was an aha moment, and also I'm realizing that I've written these 5 women, and they're all me, all of
Mm-hmm.
them. That, you know, I have such little experience as a writer that felt like a huge light bulb to me, is that I am writing my story, but I'm also writing my story through these other circumstances, and they're
Mm-hmm.
saying things that I've said or that I want to say or who I want to become or who I hope I don't become. So it's really interesting to have explored my own narrative through other beings, and so fun to do character work, you know, to
Yeah, I'm also
explore
very jealous,
myself.
and it's very cool that you can do it. It's like it's magic to me. It's like you
I
become a
mean, it's
person and you become
magic to
another
me
person.
too.
Yeah.
It's magic to me too. I mean, I've got like, you know, my girl from Brooklyn, and I'm working on her, and then, you know, I have an Irish woman, and I'm working on that accent, and I'm trying to bring in all these things, and there's an incredible amount of precision and specificity that's going into the construction of this piece, which is really good. And also, as we talk about, it needs to also be an experiment because of where I am developmentally. Like, it needs to also feel like this isn't done, right? We're dropping in on this piece in a moment where we've put like I think it's like 30 hours of rehearsal,
Yeah.
which contextually 30 hours is one not even 1 week of rehearsal in a fully mounted production. So
Mhm.
it's not a lot of time.
Well,
And I'm
as I told you yesterday, you know, if you're looking for not having enough time or resources, then I can provide that with my festival. And your happy smile is all the thanks that I need for
yeah.
providing you with a lack of resources and time. Because, but I mean, I kid, but it also is the energy of it to me
Yeah.
is just really exciting, really beautiful because and the audience will experience that too when they come to see End of
Yeah.
Hope because they will be in the process with you. Rather,
Right.
you won't be showing them something that you're tired of or that becomes stale. It's like be very much new to you as it is to them. And I think
Right.
that can be very exciting for me as an audience member.
It is. I mean, I'm really not excited in much that isn't terribly ambitious, and this is
Mm-hmm.
terribly ambitious. I think both what I'm doing, what the festival is doing, what the company is doing, what John's leadership is doing, it all feels part of this nesting doll of like, what can we make that is real, raw, honest, in process? And I think the whole festival really embodies that. So,
Yeah, and it's also you bring as I mentioned yesterday, you bring youth. You bring among other things, among other perspectives that you bring youth because I get curious about people under 65. I do, like how do you make do? Like, are you fully formed yet? No, but I mean, it's like no, but see, but am I fully formed? No, but it's also there is such a broad variety of performers from different backgrounds and different perspectives, and that
yeah.
is super exciting to
Yeah, yeah.
me
Thank you for
because
that. And
also, yeah.
I love that you think I'm young. I'm just gonna ride that wave, and I'm not telling you my real
Oh,
age
it's
either.
what's really cool
So,
to me is when I go with my wife, we're in our 60s, and then when we go to our protests, like our Tesla takedowns and stuff, like we're actually in like among the youthful ones, like because the people in Berkeley protesting tend to be even older than us. So like
right.
I get the experience of being thought of as young when I go to these protests. It's like, you know, hey there, young man. It's like, what?
Mhm.
So I guess yeah, you just have to hang out with the right people and you can feel
That's
young.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I think it'd be cool if you can to maybe just describe or just give a thumbnail or whatever of the characters who are in the story and anything that you would care to tell about what happens over the course of it. Like, do they interact or?
Yeah. So it follows five women. There's a young woman from Appalachia, which is a center for our opioid crisis in the country. There's a woman in her 20s who's from Kensington, Philadelphia, also a big hub for addiction and the opioid crisis. And then there's a mother and a daughter from San Francisco, California. And then a nurse who also works in Philadelphia, sort of on the ground floor, ground zero. And there are a couple things that unify them. One is that we're looking at addiction and the ecosystem of addiction from different angles. So, from caregivers to people who have addiction to babies and children who are caught in the crossfire of addiction. And it also centers on one day. So, it's where these
Oh,
people intersect on one day.
so
Um,
these people actually, it's very cool. I'm learning, getting period too myself. But it's so like the people all like the characters all meet each other, meet one another on this day, or they or like do they physically meet, or their lives touch each other's lives, or is it or is it something
some
that
of
you
them
can't
do.
yet say
No, I
or
can.
reveal?
I would say I won't say completely because I want you to come and see it, but some of
I'll
them
be there.
do directly overlap. And also, I think it's to me what opened up connecting these narratives was that my moment of loss happened on one day, and that day will forever be with me, right? And it feels like because when I'm in my own sort of self centered experience, that feels like the end of all time. But actually, that day, all over the world, babies were born, people fell in love, people protested with great fervor, you know. So I'm trying to sort of celebrate and meditate on that idea that loss is always coupled with birth.
Mhm.
So that's why the one day.
Cool. I love it. I love it. It's great. It's me hearing about the one day. It's great because I'm going to go see it for the first time like everybody else. So,
Yeah, but I get to see you first. So you're up first.
oh,
I'll be
that's right.
there
Yeah. Okay,
on
cool.
Friday. Next Friday. A
as
week
we
from this
speak.
Friday.
As we speak, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, yeah, it's coming up. It's coming up pretty soon. It's coming up pretty soon. But what's nervous? It's no reason to
Right?
get nervous.
I mean, they say in the theater it'll be right on the night, and I think that we just have to embrace that.
I've never heard that, but I'm gonna incorporate that into my thinking.
Yeah.
But that also is my thing. It's to me when I get nervous, which I do about, especially at the stage I'm at now, which is still developing my own show. I get pretty nervous beforehand, but then right before I start with the audience, I tend to have this sense of sort of relief and of calm because I no longer have to deal with this thing that's hanging over me that I might
Yeah.
fail at. I'm actually just living. I'm actually just having the experience. And it turns out that, at least for me, that experiencing, with incorporating all the failures that I inevitably have, that act of storytelling, getting to experience it in and of itself is like this incredible comfort to me.
Yeah.
And so once I'm there with the audience, I'm like, okay, fine. And
That's the hope. I definitely aim for that state that you're talking about. I can't always find it, but I think I will take that away from this conversation as a reminder. When I'm backstage about to go on, I want to not be thinking about my lines or hoping I sit down on the right chair, but what am I up to? What's the reason for this? What's the vision? How do I want to affect the people that I'm performing for? Because I
yeah,
think that's where we find that state of calm, or I do.
yeah. And we'll be with you and we'll all be in it together. And it
Mhm.
takes a lot of courage to do what you're doing to address this kind of subject matter. And I think it takes courage for an audience to want to
Mhm.
receive subject
Yeah,
matter that can be challenging
yeah,
as well. And so I'm really grateful in advance to the audience too, because
yeah.
isn't
Seriously,
isn't that beautiful?
I promise there'll be some laughs and some moments of
Okay.
joy. There has to be.
Okay, cool. I'm
There
sure of that.
must be.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I've actually no doubt about it. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. I'm pretty sure I did hit record this time. So I don't think we'll have to do another one of these interviews, but actually it's really fun talking to you and it'll
Yeah,
be
you
really,
too. I would do it again.
yeah, okay, cool. Well, I'll let you know in case the file doesn't process, but hopefully
Okay,
it will.
good.
And I will see you at the One for All Festival.
Can't wait. Thanks, Josh.
Take care, love. Bye.
Bye.